What's up, everybody? I had the honor of interviewing Darren ODay, one of the most underrated careers that a reliever's ever had, and it was so much fun. We talked his career, some funny things, absolutely incredible, and I love that Braves Anatomy has afforded me these opportunities. He played 15 years with 6 teams, including the Atlanta Braves. We talk about that a lot. It's such a fun interview. I hope you guys enjoy. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. As always, go Braves, champions forever. Thank you so much, Darren. This was one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. Hey, nice to meet you, and thank you so much for doing this.
Sure thing, Cassidy. Your uncle's. Are you related to Pat McMahon as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're two very special men. They've done a lot for me, so I'm happy to do it.
Well, I don't know actually what to say because you just retired. I don't know really to be able to get you and to be able to talk about your amazing career and the fact that you were on my favorite team and following you for 15 years, kind of a dream come true. So I appreciate it so much.
No problem. I'm happy to do
it. So have you been able to kind of reflect on your 15 years, or has it been a whirlwind?
Yeah. So I've kind of been creeping towards retirement for a few years now. Just it starts to get physically harder, and the demands, the time, and to be away from the family so much is a challenge. So I told my wife after this season that I was done playing and I was going to retire. She said, "Yeah, right. I'll believe that when you actually put your statement out." So I wrote my retirement statement, kind of my goodbye, about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and then I just kind of let it linger and reflected on it a little bit, and changed it, edited it, and then put it out. And now it's been pretty cool seeing the response and talking to different people about my career. It's been humbling for sure, and it was a fun 15 years in the major leagues, 17 total, but I'm ready to be done.
I will say it was beautifully written, and I honestly did not realize that you were undrafted and that you went through the Rule 5 draft, but we'll get to that. But I just wanted to start off with you being undrafted and lightly recruited out of high school, as you said. Did that give you less pressure or more pressure to make your dream come true?
I think it depends on your mindset, really, how you function as a person. I think as a lower draft pick, you're not going to get as many chances to succeed because the team doesn't have many resources invested in you. But it's funny you say less pressure, because it did kind of free me up to just go out there and find out, to just play. I knew I had a backup plan. I took the MCAT, the entrance exam for med school, and my score was good for 3 years. And I knew that if in those 3 years it didn't look like I was going to get anywhere, then I could go back to Gainesville and go to med school. But luckily, by the 3 years, 2008, I was in the major league, so my decision was made.
Well, too bad your nickname was never Dr. O'Day. You should have got that thing. But being that you were drafted or not drafted and going with the Angels to start off, what was your first appearance like, and why were you always a side armor, or how did that come about, and who taught you?
Sure. I'll start with the side army because that chronology happened first. I got recruited to some small schools out of high school, and then didn't want to go to those schools. So I decided to go to University of Florida. I tried out throwing overhand. I was good enough. I made the practice team and scrimmage with the team for the whole fall, but then I got cut in the spring. And so that freshman year of college, I just lifted weights and went to school and focused on studies, and really kind of thought I was done with baseball. So that summer I went home to Jacksonville, and a teammate of mine from high school said, "Hey, come pitch for our 18 and over team. Anybody can play." Well, in the meantime, I had started screwing around throwing sidearm with my brother, and I went out there, threw some sidearm to these. Anybody can play, like I said. So it's quite a mix of people, but it was working, and so I decided to try out for the University of Florida team again the next season as a sophomore, and I did really well. I made the team. I got to be a closer. A few years later, I got a chance to play professionally, and I'll tell you about my first professional outing, which is something not many people have talked about. But after you get drafted, you go to the team spring training complex, and that was my indoctrination into baseball. Was Phoenix in the middle of summer, and it was the hottest environment I've ever been in, ever had to play in, and I was nervous to say the least. But I had been pitching in the SEC for 4 years, so I was a little bit better than a lot of the high school kids, the 17, 18-year-olds they had there. So I did fine there, and I swore to myself I would pitch well enough to never have to come back to that place that time of year.
I can't even imagine pitching in that degree weather, but all I could remember was the College World Series when we played Texas, and of course our whole family was there, and it was 109 degrees in the stands.
Yeah.
And of course we were watching and we were losing, so we ended up losing, so it made it even worse. That's what came to my mind when you were talking about pitching in Phoenix. I can't even imagine that. But along those lines, what's more pressure, pitching in the College World Series or pitching in a MLB playoff game?
You know what? I think they're about the same, because at the time when I was in college, I remember standing on the mound. I had a good outing against Nebraska in the College World Series to get us towards the finals. And I remember I was pitching like my fourth inning, and I stood in the mound in the ninth inning. I looked around, and there was 30,000 Nebraska fans there. Well, 38,900, and then there was 100 people, mostly McMahon's in the stand. And I just thought, man, this is it. This could be the peak of my baseball career. I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it, because it was such a great environment that I wanted to take a moment and just reflect on it. And in college, the team aspect is so strong, and so you don't want to let your teammates down. So there is a lot of pressure, and luckily I got off to a good start in that College World Series, and kind of carried it through and was able to perform well. But the MLB playoffs, especially the first time I went, were quite a big change, and it got a little better as I went on. But they're both high pressure environments for sure.
We were getting to your Angels bit of your career. Who was your first strikeout, and was that your, oh my God, I'm in MLB moment, or was there an extra hitter you faced, or a situation that you were like, oh, this is totally different?
Yeah. What's funny is that freshman year of college, I remember this very clearly. I played fantasy baseball as a freshman in college, just with my buddies. And my big pickup that year was Rich Aurelia, who was a shortstop. And he won like the second half for me. And then fast forward a few years, I'm in Major League camp, and Rich Aurelia steps in the box, and I'm like, oh my gosh, should I let him get a hit just because he won me that season? And so that was before I even debuted in the major leagues. But that was a pretty big event for me. And then, I pitched well in that spring training and made the team, and we faced the Twins opening day in Minnesota, about 6 inches of snow on the ground. And my first strikeout was Brendan Harris. And I needed it because I had the bases loaded, and Adam Everett hit a foul ball that was just about this foul. Otherwise, I would have given up a grand slam on my debut, and my career might have been a lot different.
Oh.
But luckily, it was foul. We got through it, and I pitched well enough to pitch again the second day of the season.
Phew. I don't know if your mindset would have changed. I'm guessing your mindset would have changed completely if that thing was fair. But luckily it was not.
Right.
And then you had the year with the Angels, did pretty well, but then the Mets selected you in the Rule 5 draft, if I'm correctly in the order.
Mm-hmm.
How different is the Rule 5 draft to the original draft process?
So I'll be honest, I had no idea what the Rule 5 draft was, because it was my first real professional season. And usually Rule 5 drafts are minor league players. So for me to get drafted, after having been in the major leagues for the majority of the season was a surprise. But I knew I was kind of in limbo. I didn't know where I was going to be, if I was going to be in AAA for the Angels. But they called. I had a shoulder injury at the end of 2008, my rookie year. And they said, "Are you going to be healthy for spring?" I said, "Yeah." Although my shoulder was killing me. Of course. and then they said, "Okay, we're going to take you in the Rule 5 draft. You're going to be a Met." And I said, "Okay, great. We got a new team. We got a whole bunch of new guys to meet." And it was a cool year to be there. It was the year they opened Citi Field, and they had a big veteran roster with a lot of money and a lot of talent.
Can I say, as a Braves fan, I'm really glad that you didn't really make it with the Mets. I guess I can say that because
you know what's funny about that is that the Mets fans still beat up the Mets front office for letting me go. It was a roster, a procedural move. I was pitching decent, and they needed a starter because Mike Pelfrey wasn't feeling great, so they designated me. And
but I read that they took Nelson Figueroa. Nelson Figueroa ended up taking your spot, and if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't Nelson Figueroa a teammate of yours at Florida?
No, that was Cole Figueroa. That's what they told me.
Okay. I knew I had.
Yeah, they just brought him up to make one start, and Nelson was a good player and a hilarious, friendly guy too. But the Mets just haven't given Omar Minaya the end of that.
Well, they shouldn't, and I'm really glad because that is when you kind of took off with Baltimore. Is there a difference? Did you ever get comfortable with being uncomfortable, being the high leverage reliever you were in so many big situations, or was there always some nerves and?
So early in my career, my mentor was Darren Oliver, and he was with the Angels in 2008. And then I played again with him in Texas in 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
But even, he pitched for 18 seasons. He was old, and he told me that he still got nervous every outing. So I took that as it's okay to be nervous. So if you talk to a lot of athletes, the process of waiting to perform is the worst part. So, sitting in the bullpen, not knowing when you're going to pitch, I would be a little nervous. The first 5 innings game, I knew I wasn't going to pitch, so we'd be screwing around, having fun with the guys. But then once it got closer to pitching time, I would get a little nervous. And that continued throughout my whole career. It's part of it. And I think if I ever stopped being nervous, then it was probably because I didn't care.
For you had several different avenues in your career, kind of like injuries derailed things, and then the velocity dropped because of the injuries, I'm assuming. Why did you keep coming back despite all of those challenges?
Yeah, it's velocity is a funny thing. I did start getting hurt a lot. I had a pretty good workload early in my career. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way it works, is that if you have heavy workload, eventually you're going to pay the price. But I kept coming back because I just love being a teammate. I love being in a clubhouse, and I don't have anything better to do. I'll be honest. I enjoy pitching. I started to not enjoy it as much at the end because I knew how good I used to be and how much easier everything was. But I just love being around a group of guys all working, towards the same goal. It's just so much fun, and I'll forever treasure those relationships I made over all those years. And I actually enjoyed being an older guy. I liked helping younger guys because, like I said, I was helped when I was young. So I just felt like as long as I could still be part of a team and contribute, and I still feel like I'm good enough to be there. I'm just not who I want to be. Uh, so I just kept coming back for more. I guess I'm crazy.
Um, you said a lot of people mentored you during your career, and who did you take anyone under your wing, or were you just a guy that if somebody came up to you and asked you a question, you were willing, or how did that go?
Yeah, yeah. There's, um, it's actually been pretty cool since I retired. I've gotten a lot of text messages from various guys saying, "Hey, you told me this," or "I appreciate your help this time," or "You wrote me a note," or stuff like that. That really means a lot to me. That maybe I forget that I was able to impact somebody else's career. Um, in Baltimore, one of my responsibilities was hanging out with Michael Gibbons a lot, and he was my catch partner for years, and he was one of the guys. There's a bunch of different Braves guys, but I like to think that in some small way I helped everybody or challenged them to be better that I was teammates with.
Or gave us all a laugh or something with your lovely double play in Washington.
Yeah, yeah. No,
with the Braves.
so you asked me why I keep coming back. It's because I just have so much fun with these guys, screwing around, laughing. Um, it's just too much fun, man. We spend so much time together during the season that if you don't screw around, it's going to be a grind. So as I got older and more comfortable, I probably screwed around more the older I got, just because why not? Everybody knew I was serious about my work and focused on my best performance, but you got to have a little fun, right?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure with guys like Luke Jackson and others, there's no way you can't not have fun. Especially with your beach whale double play that you trained in Washington. I think that's what your wife called it.
Yes.
One of the greatest things I've ever seen, and luckily we turned the double play, so we're all good there. But are your stocks really in Cooperstown?
They didn't go in Cooperstown. That was a bit of a joke. They went in. It's close to Cooperstown. It's my basement.
Okay. All right.
They are authenticated in case the Hall ever asks for them. I had to make that play, Cassidy. I just had to. It was so hot and muggy. I wasn't getting anybody out that night, so I wasn't going to risk not turning that double play. I had to do it.
How hard is it to realize when you don't have your best stuff coming out of the bullpen, you're not a starting pitcher that can work through things? How in the world do you grind through it, realizing that you don't have your cutter, fastball, whatever the case may be that night? How did you do that?
So that's a great question, and that's part of learning to be a good relief pitcher. And I struggle with it early in my career, feeling like if I didn't have a pitch, say my slider, I didn't have my slider that day, that, man, I can't get anybody out. And then I learned as I got a little more experience that, getting 3 outs before they score a run is a successful outing. You're not going to strike everybody out every time. So I started to, it's a mental adjustment, first of all, being okay with that. And then it's a physical adjustment. If your pitch is moving more than usual, then you have to adjust your aim. Or if your pitch is not moving, then you only throw it when you have to. And you make sure it misses off the plate just to change the timing of the hitter. And then I was lucky that I had 2 different swing and miss pitches. I had a 4-seam fastball and slider that I could get. So usually if one of them was working, I would be okay. But if both of them weren't working, somebody else better start warming up.
When you were in Baltimore, that was your peak of your career, your all-star year, when you had 82 career high in strikeouts, 82. What is it like for a reliever to be in a zone like a hitter where they say they see the baseball, it's like a beach ball? What is the equivalent for a reliever when you're on like that and is it just a blur?
Yeah, it's so much fun. I can't explain to you. Somebody, so since that year, they've really nailed down pitch location, and they sent me a graph of all my located pitches in 2015, and they were all just exactly where I wanted them, within the strike zone or out of the strike zone. And I don't know what was different about that year. I've had some other really good years. That was the year after my first child, Claire, was born, and I thought it was going to be harder to play baseball with kids. And it's anybody that has kids, they know it's a big deal. But I really don't know what it's about that season, but it was a lot of fun, and I was enjoyed that season immensely personally. We didn't make the playoffs, but I I did my part that year, and I don't ever forget it for sure.
It I think you played with Nick Markakis both in Baltimore and with the Braves. Is he as stoic and businesslike as he seems?
Yeah, so that's another good question. Nick is one of the quietest teammates I ever played with. It doesn't make him a bad person. He's a great guy. He'll do anything for you. But when he comes to the field, it's just all business. He's not going to take the time and be warm and fuzzy and have a 20-minute conversation with you. He's there to work. So I think when Nick was playing, he was so focused on doing his job to the best visibility, and that's why he was the most consistent hitter of my generation. He's a guy that if he kept playing, he had a chance at 3,000 hits, but nobody talks about him because it was just Mr. Consistency. So Nick lives here in Atlanta as well in retirement, and in retirement, he's a little bit more talkative. We play golf quite a bit and hang out. Our families get together, and he's awesome. He really is. I think some people, when you're playing, you're at least half of your brain is always occupied by the game. So now that he's done, and he's a lot of fun to be around.
Well, that is some nuggets that I did not think I was going to get. So I'm very happy about that. But it's just so interesting, the life of a reliever, that you have to be like, okay, I messed up that night and I'm whatever, I let the guys down. But is there something that you told yourself every single outing to make it not as much of a mental grind as it is to be a reliever, especially a high leverage reliever?
In the beginning, I struggled with that. If I didn't pitch well, I wouldn't feel better until I pitched well. And I'm not sure when I got over it, but it's really about moving on and having the faith. It's learning honest self-assessment, which is a big thing in baseball, especially with young players, is assessing, good or bad, how you actually pitched. Is that what you threw up there tonight? Is that going to work? 9 out of 10 times. And so if I made my pitches and they spoiled them, or I faced a hitter that was able to get a hit off me that night, it was a little bit easier to sleep. But if I made poor pitches and didn't execute for whatever reason, if I wasn't focused enough, or I didn't get enough sleep, or I didn't get my workout in, or whatever, that made it a little bit harder. But what I would tell a lot of young guys before, if a guy's having a good year and then he starts to struggle and it's getting close to playoff time, I would tell them, hey, we wouldn't be here without you. You ever think about that? Like, our team wouldn't be in the position to be in the playoffs without you. So from here on out, you were playing with house money, bud. So just let it eat, and we'll find out what happens.
Because it's just so interesting to me, because relief pitchers go through struggles just as much as batters do, just as much as regular pitchers do, but their role is so magnified typically that it's like, oh no, that's what lost us the game. So it's just weird to me, as big of a fan as I am, to keep that mindset in my head, especially just as hardcore of a fan as I am. I want to win every single game, but I know that is not possible. But it's just very interesting, the mindset of believers.
We relate ourselves to like the left guard in football. Like, nobody notices the guy, he's guarding the quarterback's blind side until the quarterback's laying on the ground bleeding out of his ear, right? Like, then everybody goes, wait, this guy blew it. But
Yeah.
the other, 50 blocks he makes a game, nobody notices him. So,
Yeah.
and that's okay. It's become humorous in the bullpen. We talk about that. Relievers are people too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you gotta have a close, tight-knit bullpen where the other guys pick up the guy that didn't perform well and reassure him that he's going to be fine, and we just kind of move forward together.
Did you use analytics, or did you think that was too much information, or how did you incorporate that?
The bulk of all the scouting stuff I did on my own, just from watching video, finding other guys that pitch like me, because a lot of hitters will change their approach based on the pitcher because it's such an unusual delivery. So I would spend a lot of time watching video on my own, and I had some coaches help me along the way, learn what to watch for and that sort of things. And then when I played in Baltimore, we didn't have any analytics. We were just kind of far behind the other teams. And so when I came to Atlanta and New York for that 1 year, the level of information was like drinking out of a fire hose. So I think the good coaches and the good scouts, they break down that information to what is actually usable for each pitcher, and teams are starting to do that and getting better at it. And so a guy who's out there in the heat of the moment can remember the one or two things about the batter that he needs to know.
Were you superstitious? I'm guessing bullpens were super superstitious. And was there a specific thing you did when you were on a good run, or at bullpen as a whole?
Yeah. So off the field, no, I was not. On the field, there were a lot of team superstitions. Certain, we always did a Red Bull toast in Baltimore every third inning, and we always, do different things to celebrate the team doing well. But personally, my superstitions, I didn't have any that were too obvious. If I pitched well, I would step over the line. If I didn't pitch well, I'd kick the line, the baseline. Before I pitched every time, I'd look at Nick Aidenhart's initials in my hat just to kind of put everything in perspective. And so I guess probably Nick's initials in my hat, looking at him every time I pitch, was probably the closest I came to a superstition sort of thing.
How did Nick's relationship, obviously it impacted you because you had his initials, but how did that impact the rest of your baseball career? And because you were very vocal, as a lot of people were when that tragedy happened.
So Nick and I were good friends. Coming up to the minor leagues, we weren't really friends because I moved much quicker than him. So I met him at AA, and we were casual. We didn't hang out. Then next year we both went to big league camp, and we were two of the last guys hanging around. And that's when we started becoming friends. And then we made the team in Anaheim. We lockered right next to each other, so we would try to keep our heads down and not get yelled at by all the veterans, or not try to step out of line. We kind of suffered together in the major leagues. And he got sent down, and a few months later, I got sent down. And then I was feeling sorry for myself in the hotel in Salt Lake City and just thinking the world was ending. And Nick called me and said, "Hey, come hang out. We're watching basketball." I don't even like basketball. He's like, "I don't care. Come on, get out of your room." So after that, we became better friends. And then, after that season, I left Anaheim, and then he passed while I was with the Mets. And it was just kind of, for me moving forward, it was just kind of a reminder that not to pitch scared or worry about the wrong things, because every game is not guaranteed for various reasons. He was so talented, and he was killed right as he was realizing his talent. He had his first really successful major league start in Anaheim, and I texted him right after. And to be honest, I probably would have gone out and celebrated with him. I don't know if I would have ridden with him, but for him to have that success there. If I was still on that team, we could have been out that night. But he was a special kid. He had a great family, and he was not able to show the world what he could do. So his initials in my hat helped me remember: A, every game isn't given, every day isn't given, and then B, if I'm in a tight spot or a jam, really it's not that big of a deal. If you can kind of minimize that pressure with the 10,000 foot view, you can perform.
I'm gonna switch to more not heavy topic and kind of just a funny, because I want to see my uncle's reaction to this. So which one of of David or Pat, which one was a better coach?
The answer for me is easy. Pat changed my life as a player and as a person. He held us all very accountable in college, and sometimes you didn't like it, sometimes you didn't agree with it. But he taught us a lot about being a teammate and being a player. Sorry, I got a couple dogs bothering me here. Dave coached me a little bit in high school. Yeah. I will say Dave might be a little more handsome though. I'll give him that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he still looks fantastic. But yeah, Pat was, and I was happy that I could put his name in my retirement statement just to let him know that my 4 years I had with him in college were special to me.
Is that why you went to the Yankees in 2021 or? No.
So I went to the Yankees because I wanted to win the World Series, and then all my buddies with the Braves won one without me.
Mm-hmm.
Just to reframe that decision, that was the year after the COVID, and the Braves are a publicly owned team.
Yeah.
So the Braves were trying to cut money. The Phillies and the Mets were spending money like crazy. The Yankees were the #1 World Series odds when I signed with them. And man, I just wanted to get a World Series so I could retire. And I thought with the Braves cutting money that they wouldn't be very good. And to be honest, for most of the year they weren't very good. But they caught the magic, and
we weren't. But I am really glad you were wrong. And unfortunately, I wish you were with us. But
oh yeah, no, I treasure my time in New York very much. I enjoyed seeing behind the curtain and being a Yankee. But yeah, it would have been fun to be on that team and win that World Series. And I'm so happy that the Braves did, because those a lot of my best friends are on that team, and they all got a ring. And there you go.
So did I.
And it changed the organization. It changed the track of the whole thing, and brought a title to the city. So I accomplished a lot in baseball. I didn't win a World Series ring, but I'm glad that my buddies did.
Yeah, but you're still jealous.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a replica ring. I made that joke. Because the first week of last season, we did all the World Series rings and everything. And so myself and a few other guys that weren't on the team, we held our own ring ceremony when we got the replica rings in our lockers from the giveaway. So, you got to have fun.
Yeah. One other moment that stands out to me with you, and you were with the Braves, I believe it was 2019, Game 3 of the NLD against the Cardinals. 1st and 3rd, 1 out. The pickoff of Harrison Bader.
Yeah.
I believe was that your doing, or did Snicker call that, or?
Yeah, no, that was me. I have because of the way I pitch. That pickoff move to second base is called an inside move.
Yeah.
Mine is pretty deceptive. So earlier in my career, I did an inside move against the Red Sox. It had actually been the 27th out at Fenway. I was closing a game, and I had Jacoby Ellsbury picked off, but my shortstop didn't know that I was going to pick off. So I didn't throw the ball in the center field, but I said from then on I would never pick off again if the shortstop or the second base didn't know. So fast forward to the time I came to the Braves, I told Dansby and Ozzie, we figured out a sign where I would tell them I was going to do it, and they would be there ready at the base, because they don't have to worry about fielding the ball if they know I'm going to pick off. So luckily, Dansby and Ozzie, Dansby's the guy that was there for it, but they have really high baseball intelligence, and they remembered, and we picked off Harrison in a very big situation, which is good because I gave up a hit to the next guy that would have scored him.
Yeah. And I think, yeah. And obviously the series didn't end like any of us wanted it to, but that moment kind of stands out to me as one of your huge moments as a Brave. Obviously, I'm gonna remember those more, but was getting to be one of the most reliable relievers a big was that one of the biggest accomplishments? Because I honestly think you're one of the most underrated relievers of all time. If you look at the numbers and everything, is that how you see it?
Um, yeah, you know what? I have to live in this body, so I, there's a, it's a hard question to answer. I knew I was good, but I didn't think I was anything special. And for all those years that I put together very good seasons, they just added up. And you know, some of my counting stats are very good. And I pitched in a hitter's park in Texas and in Baltimore, very hitter friendly parks that I managed to pitch well in. And so that, you know, a lot of those stats get crazy skewed.
And of
I
course,
guess
you're
so.
really
Yeah,
humble.
that's what the numbers say. I just enjoyed playing. Yeah, I think I was one of the better setup men of the teens, you know, the 2000 teens. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being mentioned in the likes of guys, you know, Andrew Miller and Zach Britton and all these guys that I got to play with, and that I was every time I'd watch them pitch, I'd be like, how do you do that? And then I was able to pitch almost at their level. It's pretty cool because when somebody else is doing it, you can see how good they are.
Along those lines, and this is kind of just a fun question. If you could automatically steal a pitch from anyone that you played with and add it to your arsenal, who would it be and why?
Oof. Well, if I'm throwing sidearm, it's gonna be tough to add any of these pitches. But I think of all the guys I played with, the one singular best pitch I've ever seen is Zach Britton's sinker when he was the closer. I mean, it was. I was talking to somebody in an interview the other day. I said it's the closest you could get to Mariano, you know, without being Mariano. It was the guys knew it was coming. They couldn't hit it. It just wasn't. It was nothing. It was a 97-mile-an-hour split finger. Nobody ever seen it before. So that'd probably be the one.
Um, what what are your favorite moments, walk-offs that you were involved in, like fun, unexpected moments that you were a part of or your teams were a part of?
Favorite moments. Man. One day I'll never forget is when I was with the Texas Rangers and we won our first division championship. And the team hadn't won one in a long time. That was pretty cool because, you know, just I saw what it meant to the organization. Going through to the Orioles, probably one of my favorite moments in all of baseball was in the 2014 ALDS. Delman Young hit a double and off one of the guys in the Tigers bullpen, and the stadium just erupted. It cleared the bases. And, you know, man, it was the loudest sound I've ever heard. That was a good one. Here's a weird answer. In 2020, the season, the quarantine season, right? We had no fans in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Although it was a pain, you know, dealing with all the protocols, and it was a letdown to not have the fans. That season, we were such a close team because there was nobody else to hang out with. You know, you weren't allowed to go. You didn't have a wife or a family to hurry out of the locker room for. So we that was a season where it was like just distilled down to being a team, and you had to be close because of all the stuff you were going through just to be able to play. That's a season, I'll never forget as well.
As you now have retired and have had 2 weeks to realize, what are you most proud of overall, and what do you want people to remember about your career as a whole?
Yeah. I think, like I said, being lightly recruited in high school and not getting a scholarship to play in college until a few years in, and not knowing if I'd ever get a chance to play professional baseball because, I was draft eligible 3 or 4 times and nobody ever drafted me. So just kind of walking down that path, less traveled, that I wasn't a first round pick, and I managed to hang around for 15 years and be pretty good at the major league level, and just kind of the persistence it took to just keep pushing to make it, and then to stay, and then to succeed, and then to hang around until they told me to leave.
Well, one more question that I forgot about, pitching wise, were you a fan of the 3-batter minimum rule as a reliever?
Yeah, as a principle, I don't think the league should be able to tell the teams how to deploy their pitchers. I understand they're trying to speed the game up. I hate it that they thought about banning the opener and they wanted to. I'm not sure how I feel about the shift thing. I just don't like that they can tell a team where to put their fielders and what order to pitch guys and all that stuff. But selfishly, personally, I liked it because I was tired of facing one batter at a time. That's how the Braves were using me at the beginning, and then the 3-batter minimum came along, and I got to pitch a whole inning. So selfishly, I guess it's kind of a conflict, but yes, I guess we'll call me neutral on it. I'm Switzerland on it.
So I'm guessing, even though you're retired and you don't have to worry about this now, I'm guessing you do not like the throw over twice only thing. I think that's doing too much personally, but
yeah. Again, I can see the reason why they do it. There's going to be more stolen bases. The games are going to speed up. There's no question about it. And I can't come up with a better way to speed up the game, but we'll see how it shakes out. It seems like baseball has a willingness to adjust the game rules as we go, and if it doesn't work out, if people hate it, then they'll probably change it right back.
Just one more procedural question.
Sure.
Did you ever go through arbitration, and why do fans freak out every arbitration period? It's one of my peeves that I don't get.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's you could argue both sides of that. If the fan thinks the player had a good season, they think the team should pay him more. If the guy underperformed, the fan thinks he should take what he gets. I get that, and it is a confusing process. I never had to go into the courtroom. I came very close once with the Orioles, and I ended up signing a multi-year deal to cancel out all my arbitration seasons, and I'm glad that I did. That was the first financial security my family ever had, and it's an interesting process. It really is. I don't know how it can be bettered, but they fought hard to get it, and the guys, if you pitch well, you're going to be rewarded for it. So the fans, yes, they just need to stick with the process, hang in there, and at least the guy's going to be on your team one way or another.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing with Max Fried and whatever. But that is just because the Braves, whatever. Fans freak out for no reason. But the last question, just a fun question that I'll get you out of here on. Who was your hardest guy that you, no matter what you, if you told him what was coming, you could not get him out? And who was the batter that you most dominated?
Um, so Mike Trout has 2 homers off me. There's not many guys that have multiple homers off me. But the guy that frustrated me the most is a guy I played a lot with. He was with the Rays, Ben Zobrist. He would always come up when I was in a situation, and the mechanics of his swing and the way I pitch, they match up for his strengths very well. So he was a tough one for me to get out. And like I said, Mike Trout, his swing is so short, he can wait longer than everybody else to commit to swinging, so he doesn't swing at bad pitches. Guys that I did well against, I have some A-Rods up there. I'm proud of that one.
Nice.
Had some good success against him, and even in the playoffs one year, they started pinch hitting for him, even though they were paying him all that money. And Billy Butler, who's a guy from Jacksonville, Florida, where I grew up, I had some good numbers against him, but it never felt like that. It never felt like, I just dominated him. But, looking at stats along the way, I found out that I had really good numbers against him.
Well, I am really sad that I never got to see you pitch in person, but I can tell you that I'm following you from Florida to the end of your career, and getting to talk to you at the virtual end of your career, makes me feel old, but I'm really, really excited. And you're welcome for that you make me feel old. But
I love that.
This has been amazing, a dream come true, and I hope our paths cross at some point. We can really meet in person. But this has been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks for chatting with me.
Thanks.
Bye.
I will talk to you later.
All right, take care.
See ya.